A police officer is sentenced to death for a murder he maintains he did not commit. As time dwindles, his devoted German shepherd refuses to abandon hope, sensing a truth others miss. Then, just days before the execution, the dog performs an extraordinary act that alters the course of events. But will this astounding revelation arrive too late to save his partner's life? And what dangerous secret has been concealed so thoroughly that only a dog's instincts could reveal it? Please share in the comments below where you're watching from. If you enjoy extraordinary canine stories like this one, remember to subscribe. You won't want to miss future episodes. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in courtroom March 11, 10, casting harsh shadows across Jack Calloway's face. 15 years spent on the Portland police force had taught him to manage his expressions, but even his considerable training couldn't fully hide the tightness in his jaw as he awaited the verdict. His service weapon and badge were absent, substituted by handcuffs that pressed into his wrists. Judge Martinez's gavel broke the heavy silence. Has the jury reached a verdict? The jury forewoman rose, her voice trembling a little as she opened the paper she held. Jack's gaze swept the room with practiced precision. His lawyer, David Walsh, held his pen with such force that his knuckles were pale. District Attorney Peterson's lips curved subtly upward. In the rear, Eva Mercer remained rigidly upright, her expression carefully neutral. She had been his associate for 6 years, yet she might as well have been an unknown. Regarding the case of the state versus Jack Calloway, concerning the charge of first-degree murder, the defendant has been found. The forewoman hesitated, adjusting her voice. Guilty. The pronouncement struck Jack with a palpable force, yet he remained motionless. The courtroom filled with hushed intakes of breath and murmurs. The jury suggests execution by lethal injection. Jack tightened his jaw as his thoughts rapidly reviewed the evidence that had determined his outcome. The murder weapon discovered in his garage was free of fingerprints. The security footage depicted someone of similar stature entering Senator Harrison's residence, and a witness testified to having seen his car parked nearby that night. The evidence appeared impeccable, almost too impeccable. However, he possessed the true account. Outside the courthouse, Bolt awaited his temporary handler. The German shepherd's ears rose at the sound of the substantial doors opening. As Jack emerged in handcuffs, Bolt's entire body stiffened. He gave a sharp bark, straining against his leash so powerfully that Officer Torres nearly lost his balance. "Easy, boy," Torres said, working to keep hold. But Bolt's barking escalated, becoming more panicked. The dog perceived a problem. He felt it with an intuition that surpassed human comprehension. From the courthouse steps, Eva watched, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled her jacket tighter against the October chill. She'd tracked down murderers with Jack, broken up drug rings, survived shootouts. Now she was watching him being taken away as one of the criminals they'd sworn to stop. The evidence had seemed solid when she'd first reviewed it. Too solid, a voice in her head whispered. Across 15 years in law enforcement, she hadn't encountered a case conclude with such precision, each element fitting seamlessly. It resembled a connect-the-dots illustration of culpability, where the connections were made without any questioning of the resulting form. Jack maintained his gaze ahead as they escorted him toward the prisoner transport van, Bolt's escalating barks reverberating against the courthouse walls. The dog's unease broke through Eva's professional composure. Throughout 4 years of service, Bolt had never been mistaken about an individual. Not a single time. As the transport van departed, Bolt's barks softened into subdued, sorrowful whimpers. The German shepherd looked toward Eva, his brown eyes conveying a level of understanding that made her pause. She crouched down next to him, stroking his dense coat. "It's all right, boy," she murmured, primarily to herself rather than to the dog. "Something feels amiss, and we will discover what it is." District Attorney Peterson walked past, his expression conveying his recent victory. "Good work today, Detective Mercer. Justice was served," he said. However, Eva detected something in his delivery. Felt like a warning, or maybe a challenge. She recalled Jack's words from 3 weeks prior, shortly before his arrest. "There's something bigger going on here, Eva. The Harrison case. It's just the surface." She had disregarded his worries then, preoccupied with the increasing evidence against him. Observing Peterson walk away, while Bolt growled quietly beside her, she pondered what her partner had uncovered that warranted framing him for murder. The van vanished around the corner, transporting Jack toward death row. Bolt's posture became rigid, his ears attentive, as if he sensed Eva's hardening determination. She rose, her decision becoming clear. Jack had instructed her that the truth wasn't always as it appeared. The moment had arrived to apply those lessons and uncover the truth surrounding Senator Harrison's death, before time expired for her partner. The metal door of cell 241 closed with a hollow clang that seemed to resonate through Jack's bones. The confined space felt like a tomb. It contained bare concrete walls, a narrow cot with a thin mattress, and a stainless steel/toilet sink combination that had seen better days. A single artificial light buzzed overhead, offering no natural illumination. "Welcome to death row, detective," the guard stated, his voice devoid of feeling. Or, as he added, ex-detective. Jack remained still, positioned in the middle of his cell, his thoughts wrestling with the starkness of his circumstances. The sound of the guard's footsteps diminished as he walked away, leaving Jack solitary, accompanied by the echoes of metal doors, indistinct voices, and his own introspection. Across town, Eva opened the door to her apartment, Bolt following closely. She had intended to provide him with a temporary residence until alternative arrangements were finalized, but the German Shepherd appeared to have his own agenda. He moved restlessly between the door and the window, his nails tapping against the hardwood floor. Frequently, he would pause and whine, looking at Eva with eyes that seemed to convey an urgent message. Eva arranged the case files on her kitchen table, the lamp creating long shadows on the wall. She had examined them a dozen times prior to the trial, but something about Bolt's behavior at the courthouse had ignited a renewed sense of purpose. Her focus initially landed on the murder weapon, a .45 caliber pistol discovered in Jack's garage 3 days following Senator Harrison's death. The ballistics analysis confirmed a perfect match, and the gun had been meticulously cleaned to remove fingerprints. She mused it was almost excessively clean, recalling Jack's insistence on meticulous weapon upkeep. Had he employed it, there would have been traces of gun oil, rather than this pristine condition. Bolt abruptly ceased his pacing, his head turning sharply towards Eva's front door. A low growl emanated from his throat as footsteps neared in the hallway. Eva's hand automatically moved to her service weapon, but the footsteps continued past. Bolt's growl subsided, although his vigilance persisted, his body rigid and prepared. Her phone vibrated. A message from Detective Rodriguez read, "Leave it alone, Mercer. The case is closed." Eva's jaw clenched. She hadn't informed anyone that she was examining the files. The following morning, she went to the evidence lockup, displaying her badge to Officer Chin. "I need to review some items from the Harrison case." Chin seemed uneasy. "That's been sealed by the DA's office. It requires special clearance now." "Since when?" Eva asked. "Orders came down this morning." "Sorry, Eva." Returning to her desk, Eva started examining Harrison's actions prior to his death. The senator had been involved in multiple significant undertakings, but one was particularly noteworthy: a sequence of private discussions regarding the city's upcoming highway development project. Involving millions in contracts, the project had been expedited despite considerable environmental worries. Bolt, lying beneath her desk, suddenly became attentive. His ears rose as Captain Rivera neared. Mercer, Rivera's voice remained quiet but resolute, informed him of a call from the district attorney's office. They expressed concern regarding his recent investigations. "It was simply a matter of finalizing outstanding details, sir. The matters are resolved. Please cease your pursuit." He hesitated, his demeanor relaxing a little. "Avoid complicating the situation unnecessarily." That evening, Eva walked Bolt as they regularly did. The German Shepherd guided her along their known path, but when they neared the location of the new highway construction, he abruptly halted. He sniffed the air, guiding Eva towards a construction trailer. Situated behind it, obscured by scattered materials, she located a damaged piece of paper. Despite the deterioration from mud and water, she discerned a few words: Harrison and payment schedule. With a slight tremor in her hands, Eva photographed the fragment and then placed it in an evidence bag. Bolt remained watchful, his stance stiff, observing the surrounding shadows. A car engine started in the vicinity. Eva noticed a dark sedan driving away, its headlights extinguished. It appeared someone had been observing her. Upon returning home, Eva's computer received an encrypted communication from her contact within the forensics lab. They confirmed a match based on the partial prints she had requested, but noted an anomaly. The file had been altered, requiring a higher level of security clearance that her contact lacked. Eva was preparing to reply when Bolt's growl shattered the silence. She glanced around and saw a small red dot flickering on her wall. It was a laser sight. Without hesitation, she dropped to the floor as her window exploded inward. Glass rained down as Bolt's powerful barks filled the apartment. Eva crawled to her weapon, her heart pounding. It was clear now. She wasn't just chasing a theory anymore. She was getting close to something, and someone was willing to kill to keep it hidden. The early morning fog clung to Eva's shoes as she and Bolt approached the back entrance of the Harrison estate. Fragments of yellow police tape drifted in the breeze, a diminishing echo of the senator's tragic death. She had leveraged her connections to gain access, a final inspection of the property prior to its sale. Bolt proceeded purposefully, his nose actively analyzing the air as he tracked a scent trail perceptible only to him. Eva, experienced with numerous K-9 teams, could immediately sense when a dog had identified something significant. The German Shepherd guided her through the pristine garden, disregarding the clear access points, directly to a somewhat concealed storm cellar. This wasn't present in the initial crime scene photographs, Eva commented, observing the sturdy padlock. A swift scan with her flashlight uncovered another detail, recent scratch marks near the keyhole. Later, at the precinct, Eva was thoroughly reviewing Harrison's financial records when her computer screen abruptly went dark. A notification displayed, "System maintenance required." Access to all files was disrupted. "That's not a coincidence," she murmured to Bolt, who was watchful under her desk. 3 other detectives expressed frustration with their screens. The shutdown affected the entire department. Her disposable phone vibrated. "Meet me at Riverside Park. 1 hour." She recognized the message. I knew Harrison. The voice was male, elderly, and unknown. Eva located her informant on a quiet bench, scattering seed for pigeons. Former Judge Michael Conway retired 3 years ago following 2 decades of service on the bench. A month prior to his passing, Harrison informed me, Conway stated, without raising his gaze from the pigeons. He claimed to have uncovered details regarding the highway project, noting discrepancies in the bidding procedures, shell corporations, and millions of dollars diverted to offshore accounts. I inquired why he hadn't testified during the trial. Conway's hands shook as he tossed more breadcrumbs. He explained that the last individual Harrison shared his concerns with subsequently died in a robbery gone wrong. I then questioned him about his partner. He finally made eye contact. Calloway was getting too close. They needed him removed. A jogger approached. Conway became silent until they passed. Harrison maintained proof. Records, recordings, everything. In his A sudden, sharp sound echoed through the air. Conway lowered his head, a tiny red mark appearing on his forehead. Bolt's warning bark arrived a fraction of a second too late. Eva moved quickly to safety behind a concrete planter as another shot stirred up dirt close to her feet. Bolt remained down low, his training taking over as he directed her towards the nearest exit. They reached her car as police sirens started to sound faintly in the distance. That evening, Eva remained in her apartment, her hands still trembling as she examined her notes. Conway's final words resonated in her mind. Harrison possessed evidence. The storm cellar. It needed to be there. Her phone sounded. Jack's lawyer. They were accelerating the execution date. There were 2 weeks, possibly fewer. Eva's stomach sank. 2 weeks. It wasn't sufficient time. A scrape at her window startled her, but it was merely a tree branch. Then she observed a detail. The limb was positioned too near. It hadn't been that close yesterday. Bolt check, she instructed. The German Shepherd proceeded to the window, his demeanor shifting immediately. A suppressed growl emanated from his chest. Eva cautiously drew back the drape. A compact camera had been affixed to the branch, its lens focused squarely on her desk. The following morning, she returned to the Harrison estate prior to sunrise. Her lock picks compromised the storm cellar lock after 10 fraught minutes. Bolt initiated the descent, his training evident as he swiftly cleared the area. The cellar was bare, containing only a steel filing cabinet and a laptop coated in dust. Eva felt disheartened, but Bolt began nudging a particular point on the floor. His actions were clear. He had located something. A dislodged floorboard exposed a concealed compartment. Within it, a waterproof case held precisely what Conway had described: files, USB drives, and a voice recorder. Eva had just obtained the evidence when Bolt's warning bark broke the quiet. Footsteps sounded from above. Detective Mercer's voice called down, a sound she recognized. "Find anything of note?" A chill went through her. It was Captain Rivera. He continued, "I genuinely hoped you'd be more perceptive than Calloway. That you'd grasp that certain questions are best left unanswered." His flashlight beam sliced through the gloom as he came down the stairs. Eva detected the unmistakable sound of a firearm being prepared. Bolt placed himself between Eva and the looming danger, his body tense and prepared. They were confined below ground with incriminating proof and a compromised senior officer. Regardless of what transpired next, there was no possibility of retreat. Eva's thoughts hurried as Rivera's footsteps echoed down the basement stairs. Her weapon was raised, but eliminating her captain would only confirm Jack's belief in everyone's perception. Bolt stayed completely motionless, anticipating her order. Rivera stated, his voice unusually calm, that Harrison never grasped the larger context. He added that this was similar to Jack and similar to you. A loud crash occurred from above. Bolt had tipped over a metal trash can close to the cellar entrance during their previous search. Rivera reacted immediately, turning toward the sound. Eva took advantage of the opportunity, tackling him as Bolt moved forward, grabbing Rivera's gun hand. The weapon fell down the stairs. Eva fastened Rivera's hands behind his back using restraints. "The larger issue. Are you referring to the highway project fraud?" Rivera chuckled, a grating sound in the poorly lit cellar. "Do you believe this concerns a few $1 million in construction kickbacks?" Harrison uncovered a significantly larger scheme. "Why do you suppose they worked so hard to expedite Jack's conviction?" Before Eva could reply, radio transmissions crackled from above. Rivera's reinforcements were approaching. She took the evidence case and moved further into the cellar. Bolt guided her toward a corroded maintenance tunnel, a means of escape absent from any architectural drawings. They appeared 2 blocks away precisely as police sirens approached the Harrison estate. Eva's disposable phone vibrated. A message arrived from an unidentified sender. "Storage Unit 247, Riverside Rentals, code 5891. Proceed quickly." The storage facility stood empty upon their arrival. Unit 247's lock disengaged, exposing a limited area holding just a laptop and a manila envelope. The laptop activated, displaying a video file already prepared. Senator Harrison's face appeared on the screen, the timestamp indicating 3 days prior to his murder. The message began, "If you are viewing this, I am likely deceased. What I have discovered extends beyond corruption. The highway project serves as a disguise. The construction company, the offshore accounts, they all conceal something significantly greater. Criminal enterprises, including international drug trafficking and weapon shipments, are utilizing our port. Law enforcement, judicial figures, and city officials appear to be complicit. I have gathered evidence implicating everyone, including..." The recording ended unexpectedly. Eva examined the manila envelope, discovering photographs of prominent officials at clandestine gatherings, financial records detailing substantial transfers, and a roster of individuals. Her hands shook as she identified them: judges, politicians, and senior police personnel. Alongside each name, a corresponding number appeared, presumably indicating their share of the undertaking. Bolt's cautionary growl resonated just as the storage unit's door violently shut, casting them into complete darkness. The sound of a padlock securing itself reverberated within the restricted area. "Detective Mercer?" A voice called out from beyond the door. "District Attorney Peterson." A statement followed. "I have to admit, you've been more persistent than we anticipated, but this ends now." The distinct odor of gasoline drifted in from beneath the door. Eva's heart pounded as she listened to liquid being poured near the unit. "It's unfortunate," Peterson said. "A distressed detective, struggling with her partner's conviction, experiences a devastating accident while investigating conspiracy theories. That's the story the newspapers will present." Eva felt along the unit's rear wall, locating what she had observed previously. A maintenance panel weakened by age. As Peterson spoke at length outside, she silently worked it free. The service weapon would be located in the ashes, naturally, along with any evidence you believe you've uncovered. A regrettable conclusion, but unavoidable. The clear sound of a lighter igniting prompted Eva to move. She forced open the panel, entering a confined maintenance corridor. Bolt followed closely as flames erupted behind them. They reached the open air as smoke began pouring from the storage facility. Eva had succeeded in concealing the laptop and key documents within her jacket, though she anticipated Peterson would believe everything had been destroyed. Her phone vibrated. A message arrived from Jack's attorney. The execution date was established: 8 days. Eva glanced at Bolt. His fur soiled from their flight, yet his eyes were watchful and prepared. They possessed the evidence now, sufficient to reveal everything. However, with Jack's execution expedited and dishonest officials present at all levels, time was dwindling. A notification sounded on her disposable phone, another message from an unknown sender. "They are transporting something significant through the port tomorrow night. Pier 23. This is what Harrison lost his life attempting to reveal." Eva stroked Bolt's ears, her determination strengthening. "What do you say, boy? A final opportunity to dismantle them all?" Bolt's firm bark was the response she required. 7 days remained until Jack's scheduled execution. Eva positioned her car near Pier 23, Bolt watchful in the rear seat. The port security cameras had inexplicably stopped functioning 10 minutes prior. Through her binoculars, she observed unmarked trucks maneuvering to the rear of a recently arrived cargo ship. "This is Detective Mercer," she murmured into her encrypted radio. "Activity confirmed at Pier 23. Standing by for federal response." Following her escape from the storage fire, she had reached out to the one person she could still trust, FBI agent Sarah Chun, who had previously collaborated with Jack on a joint task force years ago. The evidence Eva had secured was now safely in federal custody, but more was required. They needed to apprehend the individuals involved. Bolt's quiet growl alerted her to activity on the pier. A recognizable figure emerged from a black SUV, Captain Rivera, having been released on bail just hours ago. He was accompanied by District Attorney Peterson and a man Eva identified from Harrison's photos, Marcus Reynolds, CEO of the construction company at the core of the situation. Her radio transmitted a message: "All units maintain current positions." A sudden, forceful rap on her passenger window startled Eva. She turned to see Peterson there, a gun pointed at her head. "You're becoming a real problem, Detective," he said, his smile chilling in the darkness. "Get out of the car. Both of you." As Eva exited, Bolt following closely, she observed other people stepping out of the shadows. They had been anticipating her. "Your persistence is admirable," Peterson stated, leading them toward the pier. "But did you truly believe we wouldn't be monitoring you? That we didn't anticipate your actions?" Rivera moved closer, manipulating Eva's radio. "Reinforcements from the federal government aren't arriving. That frequency has been compromised for several hours." They were directed to the location where Reynolds was watching the unloading process. Boxes were rapidly moved from the ship to the trucks. "You find it amusing, don't you?" Reynolds commented without looking at Eva. Jack nearly understood everything. The construction project, the port access, everything. He concentrated excessively on Harrison and neglected to scrutinize his own department. "You are correct," Eva responded, her hand moving slowly to her back. "He should have." Bolt's ears twitched at the sound of footsteps on metal overhead. Eva smiled. "However, I did." Gunfire erupted as FBI snipers opened fire from the surrounding cargo containers. The genuine raid team had never employed the radio. That was a diversion intended to elicit their observation. Disorder broke out on the pier. Peterson raised his weapon, but Bolt acted more swiftly, propelling himself at the DA with practiced accuracy. Eva took cover as gunfire began from multiple directions. FBI, everyone on the ground. Through the confusion, Eva noticed Rivera moving toward a vehicle. She gave chase with Bolt close behind as FBI teams took control of the area. Preventing Rivera's escape was crucial. He represented their connection to everyone implicated, extending to the highest echelons. The pursuit led them through a complex arrangement of cargo containers. Rivera was attempting to reach a waiting boat. They had only seconds to prevent him. Bolt, stop him, Eva ordered. The German Shepherd surged forward, a swift display of focused strength, precisely as Rivera arrived at the boat's ladder. Bolt's jaws closed on Rivera's leg, causing him to fall heavily onto the dock. As Eva restrained him, Rivera exclaimed, "You have no idea what you've done." As others learned, they already knew. Eva interrupted, noting the increasing number of FBI vehicles. "We didn't just target you tonight. Teams are engaging with judges, politicians, and police officials throughout the city." It's finished. Her phone vibrated. A message from Agent Chun. "Evidence secured. Proceeding to the governor's office now. Instruct Jack to remain." Eva glanced at her watch. 6 days, 13 hours remained until the execution. For the first time in weeks, she permitted herself a glimmer of hope. A chill ran down her spine, even as Rivera's laughter echoed as she led him away in cuffs. "You really think this is over?" She wondered. There's still time for accidents to happen, especially in prison. 20 hours remained until Jack's execution. Despite the FBI raids and mounting evidence, the governor hadn't signed the stay of execution. Eva paced the prison's administrative office while Bolt sat alert by the door. "Someone's blocking our access to the governor," Agent Chin explained, frustration evident in her voice. "Whenever we approach a resolution, we're being rerouted to less senior personnel. They appear to be delaying action." Eva's phone received a notification. It was an encrypted message from an unidentified sender. "Loading dock, prison kitchen. Midnight. Your partner will not survive until morning." She presented the message to Chun. "They are planning their operation tonight. We cannot initiate a movement of Jack without the necessary approval," Chun cautioned. "If we are incorrect, the consequences will be significant." Eva glanced at her watch. It was 11:45 p.m., and we have exhausted our available time. The prison's loading dock lay in shadows and silence as Eva and Bolt established their concealed location. Using her night vision scope, she identified 3 individuals near the kitchen entrance. One was dressed in a guard's uniform. "Target confirmed," she murmured into her radio. "They're here." The compromised guard unlocked the door, and 2 additional figures entered. Eva identified one by his characteristic limp. Marcus Reynolds himself had arrived to guarantee Jack's silence. "Hold position," Chen's voice crackled in Eva's earpiece. Minutes passed slowly. Eva's heart raced as she pictured them moving through the prison's corridors toward death row. Toward Jack. Suddenly, Bolt's ears twitched. A different sound. A vehicle approaching rapidly from behind. "We've got company," Eva warned, but it was too late. Floodlights burst on, revealing the loading dock. They had entered a trap. Detective Mercer, District Attorney Peterson's voice, resonated through a megaphone. He had secured bail just hours prior. "Did you genuinely believe we'd permit your interference?" Gunfire broke out from several locations. Eva and Bolt took cover behind concrete barriers as bullets ricocheted off metal nearby. Over her radio, she heard Chen's team clashing with hostiles on the opposite side of the prison. "Chun is dividing our forces. Reynolds is still moving toward Jack." Chun shouted back over the sound of gunfire, "Little busy here." Eva looked at Bolt and saw the same determination in his eyes that she felt. "Ready, boy?" The German Shepherd's muscles tensed in response. They moved as one, Eva providing covering fire while Bolt charged forward, a focused missile of fur and fury. He crashed into the nearest gunman, creating the opening they needed. They sprinted for the kitchen entrance, bullets tracking their path. Within, they detected the sound of footsteps resonating along the corridor leading to death row. A contest was unfolding, and failure was not an option. The execution chamber awaited at the corridor's conclusion. This time, there would be no further opportunities. 2 months later, Jack Calloway stood in the morning sunlight outside the courthouse, Bolt positioned beside him. The press conference had just concluded. The investigation revealed a sprawling corruption scheme involving 37 indictments, including 2 judges, the district attorney, and multiple high-ranking police officials. The corruption network that had nearly cost Jack his life was finally exposed. Eva observed from the sidelines as Jack knelt to ruffle Bolt's fur. The German shepherd's tail wagged with unrestrained joy, a stark contrast to his desperate barks on that fateful day of the conviction. Some attributed their discovery of the truth to mere luck, but Eva knew better. Occasionally, the most dependable evaluator of character walked on 4 legs. If you found this story as remarkable as we did, please share it with fellow K9 and true crime enthusiasts. What moment kept you captivated? Let us know in the comments below. We're also interested to know where in the world you are watching this compelling story of loyalty and justice from. Share your location in the comments. Ring that notification bell to ensure you never miss an upload. For more amazing K9 cases, please view our latest videos now. Until next time, remember, sometimes the biggest heroes have 4 paws and a badge. A police dog persistently barked at a pregnant woman in the mall, leading to confusion and embarrassment. Initially, the incident was disregarded, and security even asked them to leave. However, hours later, doctors revealed a disturbing realization. If the dog hadn't intervened, the baby wouldn't have survived. The following details the actual sequence of events. Please share in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe, as another compelling Royal Guard story will be released tomorrow at the same time. You won't want to miss it. The fluorescent lights of Seattle's downtown precinct hummed overhead as Officer Deborah Morgan clipped the specialized canine vest onto Max, her Belgian Malinois partner of 3 years. Outside, the October rain painted the city streets in glistening reflections. A persistent rain fell, the sort that residents generally ignored but tourists hurried to avoid. Deborah straightened her uniform collar, verified her gear one last time, and looked at the wall clock. It was 7:15 a.m. 15 minutes until their patrol shift formally started. Prepared for another day ensuring the streets were secure. Partner? She inquired, gently scratching behind Max's attentive ears. The dog's intelligent, amber eyes followed her actions with the focused intensity that had earned him a legendary reputation within the department. His muscular physique remained perfectly still as she fastened the specialized canine unit patches, signifying his status as law enforcement rather than a service animal. The precinct was filled with the regulated disorder of shift change. Night officers completing reports before departing for home, day shift receiving assignments, and coffee being consumed in abundance. Sergeant Wallace stopped as he walked by, giving Max a respectful nod. "Got something interesting for you two today, Morgan," he said, presenting a tablet containing their patrol assignments. A shopping mall had reported some minor shoplifting. Ordinarily, a standard patrol unit would be dispatched, but there had been a string of organized retail thefts in that area. Management specifically asked for our best team. Deborah held back a smile at the subtle compliment. Her 7 years with the canine unit had established a reputation for meticulousness, but it was Max who had genuinely defined their partnership. What started as routine patrol and apprehension training transformed when trainers recognized Max's exceptional sense of smell, especially his capacity to identify blood in quantities so small they occasionally bypassed laboratory analysis. This skill set was first used for identifying injured suspects and finding victims during disaster events. 2 years prior, they were involved in the response following the Highway 18 bridge collapse, where Max located 3 victims trapped under rubble that thermal imaging failed to detect. His remarkable accuracy resulted in specialized training with the Medical Detection Research Program at Pacific Northwest University, where researchers continued to investigate the full scope of his abilities. "Another day, another dollar," Deborah commented, attaching Max's lead to her belt as they proceeded towards the parking garage. The specialized K9 unit SUV waited in its designated spot, equipment already inspected and loaded during the previous night's end-of-shift protocol. While driving through Seattle's rain-slick streets, Max sat attentively in his custom compartment, occasionally observing passing pedestrians before refocusing his gaze ahead. Morning traffic flowed with reluctant efficiency, commuters maneuvering between puddles and construction detours as the wipers maintained a steady rhythm against the windshield. Their radio emitted static before delivering the morning's first dispatch. Unit K93 respond to Westfield Shopping Center, south entrance near Macy's. Loss prevention personnel have detained a shoplifting suspect who has requested police assistance for a formal arrest and a potential link to organized retail theft. K93 is responding, Deborah acknowledged, activating her lights to expedite travel through the busy streets. Estimated time of arrival is roughly 8 minutes. Max noticed a change in her voice, a slight transition to the official tone that invariably indicated they were on duty. As they neared the large Westfield shopping center, neither expected this seemingly ordinary call to challenge their teamwork in unforeseen ways. The south entrance was unusually busy for a Wednesday morning. A local school holiday had drawn numerous families, filling the walkways with strollers and teenagers, even with the ongoing rain. Deborah led Max through the automatic doors, and his training was immediately apparent as he moved through the busy area with precise heel alignment, disregarding the infrequent surprised reactions or pointing from children who noticed the police dog. Security Chief Alvarez greeted them just inside. His neat uniform and professional appearance stood in contrast to the visibly distressed young man in handcuffs sitting on a bench nearby. A small collection of merchandise still bearing security tags was gathered as evidence. "Thank you for coming, Officer Morgan," Alvarez said, extending his hand. "We caught this one attempting to leave with approximately $600 worth of electronics. The store manager wishes to press charges, and we've had 3 comparable incidents this month." Deborah nodded, already assessing the surroundings while maintaining a relaxed but firm hold on Max's lead. "We will collect his information and transport him back to the precinct for processing. Are there any witnesses we should speak with?" Alvarez indicated a small group of people waiting close to the security office. A store employee, an elderly man using a cane, and a visibly pregnant woman wearing a blue maternity dress, appearing to be approximately 7 months pregnant. The woman in blue, Emily Thompson, had observed him removing security tags in the electronics department. She was the individual who notified our team. Deborah moved toward the witnesses, with Max moving smoothly alongside her. Gathering statements had become a familiar process for her during her time on the force. Build rapport, collect information in chronological order, address any discrepancies, and thank individuals for their civic duty. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm Officer Morgan. I understand you observed the shoplifting incident. I would like to obtain your statement if you—" Max's actions shifted so abruptly that Deborah nearly lost her hold. The Belgian Malinois froze, his nose working intensely, his focus entirely on Emily Thompson. Before Deborah could give a correction, Max emitted 3 distinct barks, not the usual alert bark used in training, but a more pressing, more demanding sound. "Max, quiet," Deborah stated firmly, a blush rising on her cheeks as people turned to look throughout the mall entrance. The dog disregarded her entirely, an unprecedented action in their 3 years together. He edged closer to the pregnant woman, his barks growing louder. Emily Thompson moved backward, her hand moving to shield her belly. "What's wrong with him? Is he dangerous?" she asked, her voice filled with worry as she stepped away. "I'm so sorry," Deborah said, positioning herself between Max and the woman. "He's extremely well trained. This behavior is completely out of character." Security Chief Alvarez advanced, his demeanor shifting from professional to concerned. "Officer Morgan, perhaps you should remove your dog from the premises. We have other witnesses who can provide statements." Max continued to strain toward Emily, whining now between barks, his entire body communicating urgency that Deborah couldn't understand. A small group had assembled, with phones out to capture what was happening. The department certainly didn't need a viral video showing a police dog seemingly intimidating a pregnant woman. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Deborah asked Emily, still working to keep Max under control. Did he frighten you? Emily's hand stayed protectively on her abdomen. I'm fine, just startled. Perhaps he's responding to something different. The baby kicked precisely as he began barking.
Deborah commanded. Max, settle.
Deborah spoke with greater authority, eventually succeeding in drawing him back a few steps, even though his gaze remained focused on Emily's midsection. His actions were raising concerns for Deborah. This wasn't a display of aggression or a lack of training. It appeared Max was attempting to urgently convey a particular message. Mrs. Thompson, this may seem unusual, but are you having any medical concerns related to your pregnancy? Any pain or discomfort whatsoever? Emily appeared surprised by the inquiry. Just the typical backache and some pressure, nothing unexpected for 7 months. Why are you asking? Alvarez's patience was obviously dwindling. Officer, we have a retail theft suspect in custody and witnesses waiting. If your canine is unable to maintain appropriate behavior, we should proceed with this process without him. Deborah nodded reluctantly, feeling conflicted between her professional duties and the persistent feeling that Max's behavior needed to be addressed. Throughout the 3 years they'd collaborated, he had never been incorrect when alerting with such urgency. I understand. Mrs. Thompson, I apologize for the interruption. If you are willing to proceed, I'd like to swiftly record your statement so you can leave. As Emily began describing what she'd observed in the electronics department, Max finally sat at Deborah's direction. He kept his gaze fixed on the pregnant woman, his muscles visibly trembling as he fought against whatever his instincts urged him to do. Again, I sincerely apologize for Max's behavior, Deborah said, concluding Emily's statement, her voice remaining professional despite the lingering embarrassment she felt. The pregnant woman had provided detailed information about the shoplifter's actions, but throughout the entire conversation, Max had remained focused on her, whining softly despite Deborah's quiet corrections. It's really fine, Emily insisted, though she kept a cautious distance from the Belgian Malinois. Animals sometimes react unusually around pregnant women. My sister's cat wouldn't leave her alone during her 3rd trimester. Security Chief Alvarez expressed his displeasure, frequently glancing at his watch. Officer Morgan, we must process the suspect and resume regular operations at this entrance. This incident is causing considerable disruption, he stated. Deborah nodded in agreement, pausing briefly before closing her notebook. Mrs. Thompson, would you be willing to have the mall's first aid responder assess your vitals prior to your departure? This is simply a precaution. Max is specially trained in medical detection, and his actions indicate he's alerting to something. Emily's husband, Mark Thompson, a tall man in a business suit, has now joined them. Is that truly necessary? We are already running behind schedule for her prenatal appointment this afternoon. It would only take a minute, Deborah urged calmly. Max has a recorded history of identifying medical concerns prior to human recognition. Mark noticed a touch of worry in Deborah's tone. He thought it likely wouldn't be a problem. Emily had experienced more backaches than usual today. The mall's first aid responder, Rodriguez, who previously worked as an EMT, arrived quickly with a medical kit. His brief examination showed no immediate issues. Emily's blood pressure was a little high, but remained within the expected range for pregnancy. Her pulse was steady, and she indicated no unusual symptoms beyond the normal discomfort of the 3rd trimester. Everything appeared normal, Rodriguez concluded, as he packed away his stethoscope. Blood pressure was slightly elevated, but that's typical after standing and giving police statements. I suggest resting before your doctor's appointment this afternoon. Mark assisted Emily to her feet, his arms providing support around her waist. There, you see? Nothing to worry about. Your dog likely just smelled something else. Deborah nodded, although she noticed Max's continued alertness. We appreciate your understanding. Please don't hesitate to seek medical care if you notice any changes before your scheduled appointment. As the Thompsons walked away in the direction of the mall's north parking structure, Max pulled on his lead, emitting another whine that caused Deborah's stomach to clench with concern. Officer Morgan, Alvarez's voice interrupted her thoughts. We need to finish processing our suspect, and honestly, I'll have to create an incident report regarding your K9's conduct. Mall management prioritizes all potential safety concerns, Deborah responded, her frustration hidden by her professional demeanor. Max has not exhibited this behavior previously. He holds certifications in several detection specialties and has a flawless training history. Despite this, his actions caused a disruption and caused alarm for a pregnant woman. This is an issue that cannot be disregarded. Deborah finished the required forms for the shoplifting suspect, coordinating for a patrol unit to convey him to the precinct for booking. During this time, Max appeared remarkably apprehensive, his focus frequently returning to the path the Thompsons had taken, even after they were no longer visible. When they ultimately reached their vehicle, Deborah began to question her partnership. Had she misinterpreted Max's actions? Could there have been a gap in their training that accounted for this awkward situation? The upcoming incident report would necessitate a formal reply and potentially a review of Max's certification, a bureaucratic ordeal that could affect their standing in the K-9 unit. "What were you attempting to communicate to me, boy?" she inquired softly. As they drove away from the mall, Max's eyes remained focused on the structure they were leaving behind. Over the years, she had come to trust his instincts without question. His abilities had located individuals when technology faltered and uncovered evidence that human investigators overlooked. However, today, his conduct had appeared erratic, lacking professionalism, and potentially harmful to their reputation. Despite this, as they drove back to the precinct, Deborah felt a persistent unease that Max had been attempting to convey something significant, something that everyone, including herself, had disregarded prematurely. The autumn rain grew stronger as Deborah guided their vehicle into the precinct's K-9 unit parking area. Her thoughts returned to the initial time she encountered Max 3 years previously at the regional training facility in eastern Washington. She was recuperating from a shoulder injury, which she had gotten during a chase, an event that made her reconsider her career in patrol. The K-9 division appeared to be an ideal change, blending her law enforcement background with her long-held love of working dogs. Max remained calmly still in his kennel, while other dogs barked and jumped energetically as potential handlers passed by. A certain quality in his concentrated, focused gaze had established a connection with her instantly, an intelligence that appeared to examine her as completely as she was assessing him. "He's had 3 handlers already," the kennel master had informed her. "Too intense," they'd said. "Too focused on blood tracking to the exclusion of other training. Great nose, but they couldn't direct it appropriately." She knelt before his kennel, and Max approached the gate with dignified curiosity, unlike the frenetic energy of the other candidates. "He's not washing out," she said with certainty. "He's just waiting for someone who understands him." Their first 6 months together had been challenging. Max's extraordinary olfactory abilities sometimes overwhelmed his other training objectives. Although many police dogs receive training to identify various odors, such as narcotics or explosives, Max exhibited an exceptional and almost uncanny ability to detect blood. He was able to identify incredibly small traces that occasionally bypassed crime scene technicians, precisely locating their position with a disturbing accuracy. This remarkable talent significantly impacted their collaboration during a standard missing persons case their first year together. A 6-year-old boy had disappeared during a family hiking trip in the Cascade foothills. Standard search patterns had yielded nothing, and after 36 hours, hope was fading. Deborah had given Max one of the boy's t-shirts, expecting him to track the general scent trail. Instead, Max had detected microscopic blood traces from a small scrape the child had sustained before going missing. The blood was so minimal the parents hadn't even realized their son was injured. Following this nearly invisible trail, Max guided rescuers to an abandoned mining shaft, the location where the boy had fallen and become trapped. Medical personnel subsequently confirmed that without Max's exceptional detection abilities, they would not have found the child in time. Their most significant case occurred during the Highway 18 bridge collapse. Amid the chaos of broken concrete and twisted rebar, Max systematically located survivors by detecting blood through layers of debris. A notable example occurred when he firmly advocated for a specific area of collapsed roadway, even though thermal imaging revealed no heat signatures. Rescue personnel subsequently located a young woman experiencing hypothermia. Her core temperature was so low that sensors failed to register it. However, Max identified microscopic blood originating from her internal injuries, perceiving it through 20 feet of concrete. Following the incident, researchers from Pacific Northwest University's Medical Detection Program contacted the department regarding a study of Max's abilities. Subsequent, controlled tests validated what Deborah already knew. Max could detect blood at concentrations as low as a few parts per billion, and even more remarkably, he could differentiate between various types of bleeding, appearing to prioritize based on the severity or source of the blood. Dr. Eleanor Patel, the program's lead researcher, had been especially intrigued by Max's seeming ability to detect internal bleeding that presented with no external signs. He's not simply smelling the blood, she explained to Deborah during one testing session. He's detecting these specific biomarkers released when certain tissues are damaged. It's as if he possesses a portable medical laboratory in his nose. This training was integrated into their standard certification process, with Max's capabilities detailed in peer-reviewed research articles and specialized law enforcement journals. His detection skills had identified gunshot victims concealed within buildings, determined internal injuries in car accident victims who presented without visible trauma, and even alerted to a brain aneurysm in a colleague during a routine training exercise. Despite this, those remarkable talents had been disregarded by all, even herself, when Max had concentrated on Emily Thompson. Now, sitting in the parking lot, rain beating on the roof of their car, Deborah resolved to act. Max had never been mistaken when expressing that degree of concern, not once in 3 years. She retrieved her phone and searched for Emily Thompson, Seattle. A social media profile surfaced instantly. The woman from the mall, whose profile picture showed her smiling next to her husband, appeared pregnant to a lesser extent in the image. Her listed previous employment was Thompson & Associates Legal Services. Deborah paused for only a moment before entering the address into her GPS. Max had relied on her judgment repeatedly throughout their partnership. It might be the right time to reciprocate that trust fully, even if it carried the risk of an official warning. The Bellevue Heights apartments presented a sharp difference from the nearby area, a contemporary high-rise with expansive windows reflecting the overcast sky. Deborah had changed into regular clothing, keeping her badge safely tucked in her jacket pocket. Max was in the passenger seat, his work vest off, but his specialized training collar still fastened. "This is likely nothing," Deborah said to him as they waited parked near the building entrance. "Should I be incorrect, this unsanctioned follow-up investigation could jeopardize both our professional lives." Max's unwavering look suggested unwavering confidence, his posture rigid with the same readiness he exhibited at the mall. When Emily Thompson's blue SUV entered the building's underground parking area, his response was instant, a quiet signal and movement forward that Deborah had come to recognize as unwavering belief. "All right, colleague," she said, starting her engine, "but we will proceed cautiously." The building's concierge halted them at the lobby entrance, observing Max with professional concern. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but pets aren't allowed in the common areas without prior arrangement." Deborah presented her badge, maintaining a conversational tone rather than an authoritative one. "I'm Officer Morgan, Seattle PD. I'm following up on an incident report involving one of your residents, Emily Thompson. It will only take a few minutes." The concierge paused, then placed a brief call that seemed to resolve any issues. 18th floor, apartment 1802. "I will inform Mr. Thompson that you are coming up." The elevator journey provided Deborah time to reevaluate her decision once more. She possessed no legitimate reason for her presence here, nor a case number to justify the follow-up. Should the Thompsons lodge a complaint about harassment, she would lack departmental protection. Despite Max's persistent focus, that characteristic intensity which had previously saved lives, it reinforced her determination. Mark Thompson opened the door, having removed his earlier business attire and opting for more relaxed clothing. His face shifted from polite curiosity to recognition and then to exhaustion. "Officer Morgan, is there an issue with Emily's statement?" "No, there wasn't," Deborah confirmed. "I wanted to discuss what happened this morning in person. My canine partner exhibited atypical behavior, and in my experience, that necessitates a reevaluation." She indicated Max, who stood attentively nearby. "I assure you he is entirely safe and remarkably well-trained." Mark's stance remained cautious, but he moved to allow passage. "Emily is currently at rest. She has reported increased discomfort this afternoon, but the physician states that is expected at 30 weeks. The apartment was spacious and tastefully furnished, featuring floor-to-ceiling windows that provided a panoramic view of Lake Washington. Emily reclined on a sectional sofa, appearing more fatigued than she had earlier that morning. A throw blanket covered her legs, even though the apartment was warm. Officer Morgan? Emily's surprise was clear as she attempted to sit up straighter. She asked, "Is something wrong with my witness statement?" Max's reaction was immediate and unmistakable. His body tightened, his nose working quickly as he focused intently on Emily, mirroring the focus he's displayed at the mall, but now with heightened urgency. "I apologize for this unusual visit," Deborah began, keeping a firm grip on Max's lead. "But I wanted to check on you." Max is specially trained in medical detection, and his behavior this morning indicated he detected something concerning. Emily's hand moved protectively over her abdomen. The mall first aid person reported everything was fine. Deborah conceded that it was likely. However, Max had a proven ability to identify medical concerns prior to the onset of typical signs. He had been involved in medical research projects at Pacific Northwest University, consistently demonstrating a flawless record of detection accuracy. Mark approached his wife, his posture revealing a cautious disbelief. "You're implying your dog possesses knowledge regarding my wife's health that her obstetrician lacks?" Deborah selected her subsequent phrasing with deliberation. "Max possesses specialized training in blood detection, enabling him to identify internal bleeding prior to the emergence of external symptoms. He has located disaster victims beneath rubble by detecting microscopic blood traces through 20 feet of concrete." Emily shifted uncomfortably on the sofa, wincing slightly. "I've just been having some back pain and pressure," she said. "The doctor said it's normal, especially since I've been on my feet more than usual today." Max abruptly accelerated with such resolve that Deborah had to steady herself. Rather than barking, he whimpered anxiously, employing the sound he reserved for search and rescue missions when he'd found a seriously hurt individual. "When is your doctor's appointment?" Deborah inquired, her worry increasing as she noticed Emily's paleness and the slight tremor in her hands. "Not until 4, Mark replied, glancing at his watch. "About an hour from now." Deborah made a decision that could end her career if she was wrong. "Mr. Thompson, I strongly recommend you take your wife to the hospital now. Not in an hour. Right now." The assessment was based on your dog's behavior. Mark's incredulity was unmistakable. "That seems..." Mark started, but was interrupted. "It hurts," Emily said. Her voice had changed, fear edging into her tone, as she pressed both hands against her abdomen. "It's getting worse, not better, and I feel dizzy when I stand up." Deborah quietly stated that those could be symptoms of placental abruption, referencing her emergency response training and the potential for internal bleeding that conventional examinations might miss in early stages. Emily's face grew even paler. "My sister experienced that with her second baby. The doctor had mentioned that I have some risk factors." Mark's skepticism vanished immediately, seeing the fear in his wife's voice. "I'll get the car," he said. Deborah countered, "I think we should call an ambulance," already reaching for her phone. If Max's observations are accurate, each minute is crucial. While she contacted 911, requesting urgent medical assistance for a potential obstetric emergency, Deborah observed Max continuing his intense monitoring of Emily. The expression in his amber eyes was familiar to her, drawn from their most vital search missions, the unwavering conviction that had guided rescuers to survivors whom others considered lost. The sound of the approaching ambulance broke through the usual sounds of the affluent neighborhood. Mark knelt beside Emily, his previous doubts gone, replaced by clear worry as he held her hand. Her condition worsened quickly in the 12 minutes since Deborah had made the call, her skin now damp, her breathing faint. "The ambulance is nearly here," Deborah told them, having ensured the paramedics could reach the apartment. Max stayed exactly where he was next to her, his vigilance unchanged, but his actions were now restrained and professional. The paramedics arrived with skill deficiency, 2 experienced emergency responders who didn't pause for greetings as they started their evaluation. They functioned with the coordinated accuracy developed over years of collaboration, one starting intravenous access while the other observed vital signs and asked pointed questions regarding the pregnancy. At 30 weeks pregnant, Emily reported increased pain and pressure today, along with dizziness when standing, as the lead paramedic worked. Any vaginal bleeding? He asked. No, Emily answered, her voice weak. Just the pain and feeling faint. It's been getting worse all day. Deborah approached. My canine partner, Max, is specifically trained in blood detection. His behavior suggests possible internal bleeding, potentially a placental abruption. The paramedic glanced at Max, then back to Deborah, recognition dawning. Were Morgan and Max involved in the bridge collapse? The team responsible for locating the hypothermic victim? Yes, Deborah verified, feeling a wave of relief knowing she wouldn't have to explain the atypical medical warning. The paramedic acknowledged, immediately modifying his plan. Possible concealed abruption? Let's proceed now. Establish a wide-open fore and prepare for obstetrical trauma at Harbor Medical. To Mark, he added, we're transporting your wife to Harbor instead of Seattle General. This facility boasts the region's leading high-risk obstetrics team. Emily was moved to the stretcher with careful urgency. Her condition was deteriorating as her body attempted to counteract the blood loss, a detail only Max was able to discern. The paramedics permitted Mark to accompany them in the ambulance. Before the doors closed, the lead paramedic addressed Deborah. Are you coming? If your K-9 detected anything our equipment isn't showing, the doctors will want to know precisely how he alerted. Deborah acknowledged, trailing behind in her car with Max secured in his compartment. The ambulance navigated the traffic at a measured pace, its lights and sirens clearing a path through the crowded roadways as it proceeded to the waterfront hospital complex. During the journey, Deborah's police radio transmitted an urgent notification from the ambulance. Patient becoming unresponsive, BP declining, potential obstetric hemorrhage underway, estimated time of arrival at Harbor Medical, for minutes. Deborah gripped the steering wheel, keeping pace with the ambulance. Max, unable to decipher the radio communication, noticed the shift in her stance and whimpered gently from his space. Good boy, she said. You were right. You knew when nobody else did. Harbor Medical's emergency entrance was already ready upon their arrival. A trauma team stood by, prepared with equipment for both Emily and the baby. Deborah observed the transfer of Emily from the ambulance, the medical personnel moving with the focused urgency characteristic of serious incidents. A tall woman in surgical scrubs approached as Emily was wheeled into the hospital, questioning the paramedics before addressing Deborah. I'm Dr. Keisha Williams, obstetrical trauma, she stated. They tell me your K-9 detected this before conventional symptoms appeared? Deborah confirmed. Yes, Max is specialized in blood detection. He exhibited significant concern regarding Mrs. Thompson around 9:30 a.m. this morning, followed by heightened alarm when we examined her at her apartment around 2:45 p.m., Dr. Williams appeared contemplative, not dismissive. The first ultrasound does not reveal a clear placental abruption, but her declining blood pressure and other symptoms indicate a possible internal hemorrhage. Could your dog's behavior assist us in pinpointing the source of the bleeding? Deborah confirmed his capability, expressing surprise but appreciating the doctor's candor. He is trained to identify the most potent origin of the smell. The doctor then decided to bring him in, stating, we are preparing for emergency surgery, but if your dog can provide us with any further details regarding the site of the bleeding, it could save valuable time. Deborah guided Max through the emergency department, disregarding the surprised glances from his staff as they entered the trauma bay, where Emily was now encircled by medical equipment. The monitoring devices indicated her heart rate was elevated, and her blood pressure was dangerously low, even with fluids being administered through 2 IVs. Emily, we're going to perform an emergency cesarean, Dr. Williams was explaining. The baby is showing signs of distress, and your condition is deteriorating. Rapid action was essential. Max proceeded with impeccable control as Deborah positioned him nearer the bed. His nose systematically scanned across Emily's body before he settled quickly, placing his paw deliberately and steadily on the upper right quadrant of her abdomen, a trained signal indicating the most concentrated source of the scent he was following. Upper right quadrant, Dr. Williams observed. Possible right-sided placental abruption with retroplacental bleeding. Let's move her 2 or 3 now, prepare for a possible DIC protocol, and have the neonatal team on standby for premature delivery. As they wheeled Emily toward the operating room, she reached out weakly toward Deborah and Max. "Thank you," she whispered. Mark stood still for a moment as his wife was rushed away, medical terminology passing around him too quickly to understand. Then he turned to Deborah, his face pale. "The doctor stated, if we had waited until our scheduled appointment, it would have been—" He was unable to complete the sentence. "Your wife is in good hands," Deborah reassured him, despite the seriousness of the situation being clear in the controlled disarray surrounding them. Harbor Medical possesses an exceptional trauma team. A nurse came forward to direct Mark to the surgical waiting area, noting that the procedure would probably take a minimum of 1 hour. He paused briefly to kneel beside Max before going with her. "I didn't believe," he stated quietly, his voice heavy with feeling. "But you knew. How did you know when no one else could discern it?" Deborah wished she could offer a less complicated explanation than the intricate mix of genetics, training, and the unexplainable connection between handler and canine that had previously saved lives. "He's special," she replied, "and he's never wrong when he alerts like that." The surgical waiting room possessed the characteristic stillness often found in hospitals, a place where time appeared to hang between hope and worry. Mark Thompson walked back and forth across the room, pausing sometimes to look out the rain-streaked windows at the harbor below, then continuing his steady steps. Deborah remained still in the corner, Max settled at her feet, yet watchful, his training enabling him to stay composed within the medical setting despite likely detecting stress from the humans nearby. "You don't need to remain," Mark stated abruptly, ending the silence that had lasted almost 30 minutes. "You've already exceeded your required responsibilities." Deborah responded, "I'd like to observe this conclusion, unless you desire solitude." Mark shook his head, returning to the molded plastic chair beside her. "No, you and Max are the reason we're here in time." He paused. "They're not just empty words when I say Emily and the baby would—" He swallowed hard, unable to complete the thought. The surgical liaison nurse had updated them once, 20 minutes into the procedure, with the measured optimism that medical professionals cultivate. Emily was stable, the surgery progressing, more information would come when available. The carefully neutral phrasing had done little to ease the tension visible on Mark's face. "Can I ask," he began after another pause, "how did your partner know?" "The doctors performed tests this morning during her routine checkup and found no cause for concern." Deborah paused, contemplating how to explain something that medical researchers were still investigating. "Max's sense of smell is approximately 40 times more powerful than ours, but it's more than just sensitivity. He had received specialized training to detect blood in quantities undetectable by standard testing. Crucially, he could distinguish between normal blood presence and unusual bleeding patterns. However, Mark pointed out there was no visible blood. Even now, the doctor explained, it was a concealed abruption. The blood didn't need to be visible to him. The body releases specific biomarkers when internal bleeding occurs. Tiny alterations in blood chemistry, undetectable through skin, breath, or even clothing, don't escape Max's awareness. Their conversation was paused as the door opened, showing Dr. Williams still wearing surgical scrubs, her expression carefully neutral, yet subtly conveying the relief that accompanied good news. "Mr. Thompson," she started, sitting in the chair opposite them, "your wife is stable now. An emergency cesarean delivery was performed, and we are currently treating the placental abruption that caused significant internal bleeding." "And the baby?" Mark asked, his voice quiet. "Your daughter is in neonatal intensive care. She is premature at 30 weeks, but is breathing independently with supplemental oxygen. Her vital signs are stable, which is notable given the situation." The visible strain lessened from Mark's body, although worry remained on his face. "Is it possible for me to see them?" "Emily is recovering now. She can be seen briefly in approximately 20 minutes. The baby will remain in the NICU, but you may visit her as well once Emily is settled." Dr. Williams then focused on Deborah and Max. "Officer Morgan, I wish to thank you and your partner for your actions. The surgical team verified a concealed placental abruption precisely where your dog indicated." "How critical was it?" Deborah inquired softly. The doctor's formal composure eased a bit. "Throughout my 15 years practicing obstetrical medicine, I have seldom observed a concealed abruption advance to such a degree without noticeable external signs. Had Mrs. Thompson arrived at her scheduled appointment, both she and the baby would likely have been in critical condition, potentially past the point where we could have provided effective intervention. Mark covered his face with his hands, the full weight of how near they had come to a tragic outcome finally registering with him. Dr. Williams added, "It's quite notable that your dog identified this issue at the mall earlier today, prior to Mrs. Thompson showing any noticeable signs. The pathology report indicates the abruption was in its initial stages then. There was microscopic bleeding that wouldn't have been picked up by standard screening methods. This aligns with his training, as Deborah clarified. Max located faint traces of blood, several hours old and too minimal for crime scene technicians to identify without specialized chemical analysis. Fortunately, his abilities helped save 2 lives today," Dr. Williams observed, consulting her pager. The obstetrics department would be keen to learn more about the canine program. They are continuously searching for improved techniques for early detection of pregnancy complications. After the doctor departed, Mark remained silent for several minutes, processing everything. Finally, he turned to Deborah. "I dismissed him completely this morning. I thought it was just an untrained animal making a scene," he said. "Most people would have reacted the same way," Deborah assured him. "That's why I came to your apartment, despite having no official reason to follow up. I've learned to trust Max's alerts, even when they seem improbable." "How did this happen without anyone noticing?" Mark asked. The inquiry seemed aimed more at himself than at Deborah. "Emily had a checkup just last week. All results were normal." Dr. Williams noted it was concealed. The bleeding was situated behind the placenta, not externally. Such instances are notably dangerous as they frequently lack symptoms until they reach a critical state. The liaison nurse reappeared, letting them know Emily had been moved to recovery and Mark could visit briefly. He stood up, then paused. "Would you and Max join as well?" "For just a moment, I believe Emily would like to express her gratitude to both of you." The recovery room was softly lit and peaceful, except for the consistent beeping of the medical devices. Emily was positioned a little upright, her skin still fair, but without the bluish tinge of severe blood loss. Her eyes lit up upon seeing Mark, and then grew wide with surprise as Deborah and Max entered behind him. "You remained," she said faintly, reaching out her hand. "Thank you doesn't seem sufficient." Deborah moved closer to the bed, Max keeping his heels firmly planted. "I'm just glad we followed up," she said. "How are you feeling?" Emily responded with a faint smile, like I've been hit by a truck. She added, "But they say both I and Charlotte are going to be okay." "Charlotte?" Deborah inquired. Mark confirmed. "Charlotte Morgan Thompson. We just decided on the middle name. It seemed appropriate to name her partly after the officer who saved her life," he said, his voice catching slightly. Deborah experienced a sudden emotion that constricted her throat. "That's quite an honor, but Max deserves the recognition. He was the one who recognized something was amiss." Emily's eyes moved towards the Belgian Malinois, who was sitting attentively by Deborah. The doctor explained the situation, stating that Deborah had a concealed placental abruption that wouldn't have presented symptoms until it was too late. "Your dog detected it hours before any medical equipment could have." Deborah explained that his nose can detect blood in concentrations as low as a few parts per billion. The research team at Pacific Northwest University continues to try and understand exactly how he distinguishes between normal blood presence and abnormal bleeding patterns. "Well, whatever he sensed," Emily said, "he knew before anyone else that something was seriously wrong." The doctor said, "By the time we reached my scheduled appointment," she trailed off, her hand tightening around Mark's. Focusing on the encouraging aspects, the nurse interjected gently. "Your daughter is progressing remarkably well, considering she was born at 30 weeks. You will be able to visit her in the NICU after you have had a little more rest." As preparations were made for Emily to get the rest she needed, Max did something unexpected. He moved a little closer, his nose softly touching Emily's hand where it lay on the blanket. The brief touch ended as he resumed his place next to Deborah, yet it brought tears to Emily's eyes. "It's almost as if he knows," she murmured. Deborah affirmed with a nod, her own throat constricted with feeling. "I believe he does." The neonatal intensive care unit functioned according to a unique cadence, separate from the regulated disorder of the emergency department below. Quiet tones and delicate actions fostered an environment of meticulous accuracy. While medical staff cared for the unit's small patients, 3 days elapsed since the emergency surgery. Deborah stood outside the glass-walled room, watching as Emily sat beside the incubator holding her daughter. Charlotte Morgan Thompson, born 8 weeks premature and weighing just over 3 pounds, had surpassed initial medical expectations. Despite needing continued oxygen and feeding support, she demonstrated significant strength, a quality neonatal specialist linked to the swift action that had avoided extended oxygen deficiency. "She has your fighting spirit," Deborah overheard Mark say to his wife as the sliding door opened to allow another visitor. Dr. Williams came forward, holding a clipboard, her usual professional appearance relaxed by a sincere smile as she addressed the new parents. Deborah had initially intended to leave, feeling she shouldn't interrupt their private medical conversation. However, before she could depart, Mark noticed her through the window and gestured for her to join them, showing that her presence was appreciated. "Officer Morgan," Dr. Williams acknowledged as Deborah entered. "I was just reviewing Charlotte's progress with the Thompsons. She's exceeding our expectations for a 30-week delivery following placental abruption." Emily looked up from the incubator, her smile showing exhaustion. The transfusions and emergency surgery had taken their toll, but the medical team had assured her that with time, she would recover completely. "We were just discussing arranging for Max to meet her formally once she regains some strength. The NICU supervisor has approved this as an exception." "He would appreciate that," Deborah responded, feeling moved by the action. "He is currently situated in the K-9 unit vehicle. Department guidelines prohibit him from entering medical facilities without explicit permission." Dr. Williams recorded a note on her clipboard. "I have issued that authorization, effective immediately. I have discussed with the hospital administrator the possibility of creating a pilot program involving your K-9 unit for high-risk obstetric screenings. Your partner's capabilities could potentially transform how we identify early pregnancy complications." This idea wasn't completely surprising. Max's exceptional detection skills have previously drawn attention from the medical field, but using them in obstetrics presents a promising new area of exploration. Deborah considered the research potential involving other pregnant women, focusing on complications that could be identified before they escalated into life-threatening emergencies. She volunteered to discuss the idea with her superiors, noting that the department already had established protocols for specialized deployments in medical settings. Mark stood beside his wife, his hand gently resting on the incubator holding their daughter. "I found it difficult to accept Dr. Williams' explanation of Emily's condition. The placenta had started to detach from the uterine wall that morning, coinciding with the moment your dog first alerted at the mall. The doctor detailed that the bleeding was entirely internal, adopting a clinical and precise tone. She clarified that standard screening methods would not have identified the issue at that stage. When Emily arrived at the hospital, approximately 20% of her blood volume had been lost into the concealed space behind the placenta. If the condition had advanced another 2 to 3 hours, the potential consequences would likely have been severe. Emily reached through the incubator's access port to gently touch her daughter's tiny hand. The NICU doctor explained that babies born following placental abruption frequently experience complications related to oxygen deprivation. However, Charlotte's test results are all normal. Dr. Williams clarified that we were able to deliver her because the placental separation hadn't advanced to the point where it would have jeopardized her oxygen supply. Typically, in situations like this, patients don't receive medical attention until they display significant symptoms, and the fetus has frequently been in distress for hours. A sense of the potential severity of the situation lingered briefly before Mark spoke. Hospital leadership inquired about our willingness to contribute to a case study for their medical journal. The focus would be on documenting an instance where a police canine identified a critical medical condition prior to the detection by conventional medical technology. "I believe this is an excellent proposition," Deborah stated. "Max's abilities warrant greater awareness within the medical field. There could be other potential uses we haven't yet explored." A soft chime from Dr. Williams's pager interrupted the discussion. Having reviewed the message, she stepped away to care for another patient, stating she would return to talk about Charlotte's feeding progress. Once she left, Emily took Deborah's hand. "I can't help but think about how things might have turned out differently," Emily said. "If you hadn't relied on Max to follow up." "He's the one who should be recognized," Deborah replied. "I nearly dismissed him myself. Were it not for our shared past, and the numerous occasions his instincts proved accurate even when they appeared unlikely, I might have considered his actions an unusual occurrence. Will you incur any repercussions for observing us without proper authorization?" Mark inquired, his voice filled with worry. Deborah replied with a smile. "Actually, the opposite is true. After the department became aware of the situation, they've provided complete backing. The possibility of favorable media coverage and the potential for advancements in medical research have transformed what might have been a routine matter into what my sergeant described as a public relations opportunity." Observing through the glass wall of the NICU, she noticed other small infants in their incubators, all supported by the equipment intended to maximize their chances of survival. She wondered how many of their mothers might have gained from earlier identification of complications. What number of future cases might be identified sooner? Ideally, if Max's abilities could be consistently used in medical screening. "Would you and Max consider being Charlotte's godparents?" Emily asked abruptly, the question surprising Deborah completely. "I know it's unusual, but then so is having your life saved by a police dog with a supernatural nose." The unexpected offer moved Deborah profoundly. Throughout her career in law enforcement, she had rescued individuals and impacted numerous cases. Yet this situation felt distinct, more intimate, and deeper in significance. "We would be honored," she replied concisely, recognizing that this case had altered not only the Thompsons' lives but also her own understanding of her collaboration with Max. She had always been impressed by his exceptional skills, but now she realized that relying on those abilities could go beyond standard work rules and processes when something truly critical was involved. As she departed the NICU to get Max from the car, Deborah considered the connection that had led her to trust her colleague's judgment, even though every reasonable consideration suggested otherwise. Certain bonds transcended typical understanding, be it between a mother and child, a handler and dog, or the unusual capacity of a dog to perceive what advanced medical equipment missed until the situation was critical. The winter sun stretched shadows across the main entrance of Harbor Medical Center as Deborah led Max through the automatic doors. While they had been visiting weekly throughout Emily's lengthy recovery, today held a significant moment: Charlotte's formal release following 31 days in neonatal intensive care. The Belgian Malinois moved with impeccable discipline despite the excitement visible in his attentive stance. He had adjusted surprisingly well to the hospital setting during their earlier visits, preserving his professional attitude even as staff paused to appreciate him. He chose a specialized therapy dog designation, temporarily granted for this visit, instead of his usual working vest. The Thompson family was located in the NICU family room, where balloons and a small group of medical staff who had cared for Charlotte during her first month were gathered. The premature infant, who had previously appeared impossibly tiny, now weighed nearly 5 pounds. Her improved condition was clear in her more alert gaze and stronger movements. Emily, as mandated by hospital policy for discharge, remained in a wheelchair despite her physical recovery from surgery. A smile spread across her face when she noticed Deborah and Max entering. "The guests of honor," she announced, prompting the assembled medical team to turn. "Everyone, this is Officer Deborah Morgan and K-9 Officer Max, the team that saved both our lives." Dr. Williams approached. Perfect timing. "We were just about to have a small celebration before discharge. Charlotte has surpassed all developmental milestones." Mark came forward, gently holding his daughter. The change in him was striking. He had previously questioned Max's methods, but now he knelt with care to position his daughter at eye level with the Belgian Malinois. "Charlotte," he spoke quietly, even though the baby was too young to comprehend, "this is Max. He's the reason you and your mom are both here today." Max stayed completely still, his training enabling him to evaluate the little human without any actions that could be perceived as threatening. Following a brief period of careful observation, he performed an action that moved Deborah to tears. He slowly lowered his head in a gesture of remarkable tenderness, his nose delicately sniffing the baby's blanket before he returned to his poised sitting posture. "He remembers," Emily said softly. "Somehow he understands who she is." A representative from Pacific Northwest University's Medical Detection Program, Dr. Patel, was present for this important event. For the past month, she had held several sessions analyzing Max's capabilities, integrating the insights from Charlotte's case into her continuous research. Dr. Patel explained to the assembled medical personnel that the truly notable aspect wasn't solely his ability to identify the abruption prior to the onset of typical symptoms, but also his ability to distinguish it from standard pregnancy blood markers. His nose detected the precise biomarkers indicative of placental separation, a capability beyond the scope of our present screening procedures. A NICU nurse who had been involved in Charlotte's care from her initial arrival expressed astonishment. In 23 years of neonatal nursing, I have encountered numerous placental abruption cases. The results are seldom this favorable, particularly with concealed abruptions, where diagnosis usually occurs only after pronounced symptoms manifest. That's why we are implementing the pilot program next month, Dr. Williams added. Officer Morgan and Max will visit our high-risk pregnancy clinic twice weekly to screen patients. We are developing a research protocol to document and analyze his alerts. Emily reached out to stroke Max's head, a gesture the disciplined canine accepted with dignified patience. We've been told that many women with my condition don't reach the hospital in time, she said quietly. Without immediate intervention, both mother and baby often. She didn't need to complete the thought. Everyone in the room understood the seriousness of what had nearly happened and what Max's extraordinary abilities had prevented. Mark carefully returned Charlotte to Emily's arms, the baby now sleeping peacefully, unaware of her medical journey or the significance of this day. We wanted to give you something, he said to Deborah, retrieving a small package from beside the wheelchair. While it may seem modest in comparison to your previous generosity, we wished for you to receive this. Within the securely packaged box was a framed photograph depicting Charlotte and her incubator, showcasing her small hand clasped around Emily's finger. Accompanying it, a silver, badge-shaped medallion bore the inscription Canine Hero, Max, along with Charlotte's birth date. The department already presented us with formal recognition last week, Deborah remarked, moved by this thoughtful personal touch. Emily clarified that this wasn't about formal acknowledgement. It was a gift from our family to yours, as you and Max have become to us. While they made arrangements to depart the hospital, Charlotte was safely secured in her car seat. With medical staff providing concluding directions, Deborah considered the remarkable sequence of occurrences that led them to this point. What started as a standard shoplifting call had fundamentally altered not only the Thompsons' lives, but potentially the future of maternal-fetal medicine. The hospital administrator had spoken with her earlier that week regarding the possibility of expanding the pilot program into a lasting screening initiative, one that could eventually be mirrored in hospitals nationwide. Max's capabilities, previously viewed as exceptional even within the specialized field of canine units, could potentially lead to a completely novel method for the early detection of pregnancy complications. As they accompanied the family to their vehicle, Deborah noted Max's persistent attentiveness, not the frantic vigilance of that initial meeting, but the content focus of a protector whose responsibility was now secure. Certain bonds defied easy understanding, whether built over years of collaboration or forged in a sudden crisis when intuition trumped formal instruction. As they arrived at the parking area, Emily spoke to Deborah for a final moment. The doctor informed me yesterday that if we had delayed even 2 more hours, neither Charlotte nor I would have made it. I can never adequately express my gratitude for heeding Max's concerns when everyone else disregarded them. Deborah observed Mark fastening the car seat, Charlotte sleeping soundly inside. That's what partnership signifies, she stated quietly. Occasionally, one must have faith, despite not completely comprehending. This feeling resonated as much within her connection with Max as it did regarding the remarkable rapport they had cultivated with the Thompson family. A note that frequently, the most meaningful relationships arise from instances where we choose to listen to intuition over reason, believe instead of question, and connect instead of withdraw. Have you ever observed an animal recognizing something before humans were able to perceive it? The remarkable story of Max and Officer Morgan illustrates that our animal companions often sense threats that are unseen by us. Their heightened senses, especially their remarkable ability to detect anomalies, occasionally alert them to medical conditions, natural disasters, or other threats well before we become aware. Throughout history, accounts have arisen of dogs detecting cancer in their owners, sensing oncoming seizures, or even alerting to significant changes in blood sugar levels. Although scientific research continues to examine these extraordinary capabilities, it remains undeniable that animals occasionally detect things that even advanced medical technology misses. Considering the critical emergency experienced by Emily and Charlotte Thompson, should trained police dogs be utilized more frequently in medical environments? Max's remarkable capability to identify a hidden placental abruption hours prior to standard signs emerging indicates possible, yet unrealized, possibilities for canine teams extending past typical law enforcement duties. With medical detection dogs increasingly utilized for conditions like diabetes and epilepsy, possibly law enforcement canines, through specialized training, could fill essential gaps in healthcare screening. What's the most astonishing animal instinct story you've encountered? You may have observed a pet acting unusually before an earthquake, a service dog alerting to an undetected medical emergency, or another striking example of animal perception that went beyond common understanding. We are interested in hearing about your experiences with these exceptional bonds between humans and animals. If Max and Officer Morgan's story resonated with you, please like and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. These incredible canine stories showcase the remarkable bond between handlers and their four-legged partners, connections that sometimes transcend explanation and occasionally save lives when it matters most. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We share new police canine stories regularly, each highlighting the remarkable abilities of these highly trained animals and the officers who work alongside them. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss a new upload. Watch our previous canine hero stories, which are appearing on your screen now. From drug detection and criminal apprehension to search and rescue operations, these incredible working dogs continue to prove that sometimes the most powerful tools in law enforcement have four paws and an extraordinary nose. We'll see you tomorrow with another brand new video.